Well, hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show and the Western Hippie Podcast. I am your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. And as I've discussed both on the Miss Michaela Mae Show and the Western Hippie Podcast, I have started two shows in an intention. There we go. Those words were not coming out to make the brands more clear so I can have my personal brand where I'm an author and do more personal development, self-help. And then the Western Hippie is more masterclasses on holistic healing protocols with specifically horses and dogs. And then as of right now, I'm also going to keep holistic healing for humans on the Western Hippie as well. However, there are some times when the episodes are very clear for both audiences. And today is one of those days. And I thought, you know what? Instead of because I am a woman who loves efficiency, I do not like doing things twice. Some people call it lazy. I call it efficient. I'll let you decide which one you are calling it today. And so instead of re recording two different intros, I thought, you know what? I will just introduce both the shows in one intro and then we will just roll into the episode because I really wanted to talk about this today for the Miss Michaela Mae show. And I also wanted to talk about this for the Western Hippie podcast because it very much applies to an holistic healing protocols, all for humans, dogs, and horses. So I thought, you know what? This will be our first official cross post episode. And so without further ado, let's get into you are not self sabotaging, you are self protecting. And in fact, self sabotage does not actually exist. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you some protocols and tools to help you work through both reframing self sabotage and also for working through self protection. So I'm not going to go fully into it, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a mini masterclass on the subconscious mind so that we're all clear on the same terms. And so the first thing that we need to know about the subconscious mind is it is very literal. And the reason the subconscious mind is so important to talk about is because it is in charge of 90% of our day to day life, our decisions. Not only does it hold the blueprints for keeping our organs working, but it also holds the blueprint for our beliefs, values, and rules that we use to filter out everything within our lives. And if you are like me when I first started, are a little unsure of, okay, Michaela, this sounds good, but how is something more powerful when I'm not even aware of it? And the thing that I told myself back then that I tell people now is which part of your brain is keeping you alive, the conscious or the subconscious? Meaning, which part of your brain is in charge of keeping your heart beating and your lungs breathing without you having to consciously tell it to do so? It is the subconscious mind. So, just like the subconscious mind has blueprints for keeping our organs running, our blood pumping, it also has blueprints for our daily decisions, our daily beliefs, and our daily actions. And it also has this other thing of safety protocols and safety protective mechanisms. Because at the end of the day, the ego may get a bad rap, the subconscious mind may get a bad rap, but its number one priority is to keep you alive. And I don't know about you, but me personally, I cannot give something a bad rap that is doing its best to keep me alive and to keep me protected. The goal is not to learn how to work against this part of our brain and psyche, but learn how to work with it. And that is one of my goals and intentions here today is for all of us to learn how to work with this part and reframe it to not see this part of ourselves as the enemy, but as our protector. And that is the first reframe I want to start giving on self sabotage. How is how would you reframe and how would you look at something that wants to protect you and keep you alive and keep you safe? Yes, it may be keeping you in an unproductive pattern towards your goal, but at the end of the day, it's really just trying to keep you safe. Now, would you call that a protector or a sabotager. And the other thing that I wanted to add before we really dive deeper into this topic is when you start to work with the subconscious mind, I want you to think of it very, very literally, because you know that kid, when kids are in that stage, that they just take everything very literally. And my favorite, if you want to really see the subconscious mind playing out in a very good, I'm having a hard time thinking of the word, a very good, it's showcase. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's the word that's coming to me, and it's the word we're going to use. If you want to look for a good showcase of what the subconscious mind looks like in real time, I highly recommend that you go watch the movie Christopher Robin, the Disney live action remake of Winnie the Pooh. And we can argue all of the stuffed animals are very much this way, but because Winnie the Pooh has the most screen time, I really highly recommend that you just lock in and focus on Winnie the Pooh and how literal he is throughout that film. That is exactly how our subconscious mind works. And so, my favorite quote to explain the subconscious mind from Christopher Robin is, there's a point where Christopher Robin is talking about efficiency, and Pooh says, I guess you should just let me go for efficiency. Because kids are very literal and they don't have these big fancy, like some kids do, some kids definitely do, but like big vocabularies, like kids are constantly taking things very literally. That's exactly how the subconscious mind works. So what's super interesting is from the ages to when we're in the second trimester of in the womb to when we are 7 to 8 years old, depending on the child, that is when our subconscious mind is forming. And we actually don't fully have the part of our conscious brain that is the filter. And so that is why kids take things very literally. Now, the interesting thing is we think that part of ourself goes away. It doesn't. That filter of the conscious brain actually just gets added on. So we don't lose that literalness. We just have a filter that is more, or that is, that is less literal than this part of our brain. And so we don't lose it, it just gets covered up. So our subconscious mind, regardless of if you're 7 or if you're 77, is still very, very literal. And so this is my personal, so when we think about the word in itself, self-sabotage, I want you to get an image that is as literal as possible when it comes to self-sabotage. I personally see a visual of me purposely stabbing myself. And when I saw that, when I ran myself through this exercise for the first time, I was like, I would never stab myself. And yes, there are obviously instances where people off themselves or where people are cutting themselves. There is very literal instances when people would actually do self-harm. And if we really pull on the weeds of that, they are still actually trying to protect themselves, because most people that do that are looking for a cry for help and looking and seeking that for that connection. And connection is a survival mechanism. So in a very roundabout way, even that they are still doing as a form of self-protection. Again, I'm taking things very literally because if we want to understand the subconscious mind, we have to take things very literally. Now, if you are actually going through a experience in your life that is causing you to self-harm or even thinking about offing yourself, you need to go seek help now. This is not something that you want to play around with. Like, treat it as seriously as you would if you had a deadly physical illness. We need to start treating our mental illnesses that seriously as well. So that's just the side note. But as the general rule, we want to think about self-protection in the most literal, or self-sabotage in the most literal way possible. So I got a visual of me purposely stabbing myself. I'm like, okay, I wouldn't actually do that. Like, if I'm going to reach a goal and I start to say, like, I'm self-sabotaging myself, I wouldn't actually stab myself to prevent me from reaching the goal. Okay. So we're getting that. So again, your visual might be a little bit different, but I want you to get that image because subconscious mind speaks in feelings and images, conscious mind speaks in words. And so we want to get the image because that is what's literally being portrayed in our subconscious mind and what feeling it invokes. And so when I think of that image of me stabbing myself and I visualize like a timeline, okay, here's me, here's the goal, and then here in between the goal is me trying to get to the goal, and we're trying to figure out what action we are trying to take. Okay, I wouldn't stab myself. And then what feeling, if I'm visualizing it, okay, what feeling would I feel as I'm stabbed? I actually like, it's very interesting when I look at the visual in my head, I'm like, I won't even actually let the knife like penetrate me. And and then when I first went through that, I'm like, oh, I'm even protecting myself like from the knife itself. Like that's super interesting. Okay. And so keep just walking yourself through this. Like see the visual in your head, and we're going to break it down very, very literally. Continue to break it down very literally. So, okay, now we've got this thing. And even if we go and say, okay, so if we're taking that very literally, all right, we're not fully doing that. Okay, but what are we doing? Okay, if I see myself in my head and I see the goal, and what do I see myself doing? I see myself running full speed ahead and then all of a sudden like hitting the brakes. I rode something called reining horses for a while, and there's this thing called a sliding stop. If you've never watched it, you should totally look up a video of a sliding stop. If you just do like reining sliding stop or horse sliding stop, but essentially the horse is running full speed and then they have special shoes on and then they're in really deep dirt. So when the horse stops, like all this dirt comes up and then they come to a halt and start to back up. And so it's like I'm running full speed, I'm doing the sliding stop, and I'm falling just short of my goal every time. So now we're going to break into what is that stop? And that stop at the end of the day for all of us, we might see that a little differently, is going to come to we've hit a limit to which if we pass that limit, it's going to make us feel unsafe. And so again, with the subconscious mind, the goal is just always to keep us safe. It's self-protection. It is not self-sabotage, because sabotaging would mean we are doing the very thing that we are trying to prevent, which is putting ourselves in an unsafe situation. And again, the reason this is so important is we want to get all of these parts of ourselves on the same team. So we are not working against ourselves, but with ourselves. So, okay, now I know I've hit this limit. So we want to imagine the visual. So again, for me, it's that sliding stop and it's as if I'm hitting a wall. So I'm going to visualize that wall and I'm going to start to ask myself, what is that wall? Why, when I get to this wall, do I decide I am unsafe? And so one of the things that I have personally been working on is it's a visibility thing. It's allowing myself to be like seen for who I really am and thinking that I am still loved at every single stage of my life, regardless of what I look like, regardless of what any other status that I have. And so I'm going to start to question and ask this part of myself, what do you need to feel safe? Because once we have that safety in place, that wall is just going to go down. I don't know why I'm getting this visual, but did you ever play? It was the Mario Party on the GameCube, but my sister and I always played it on the Wii because when the GameCube went away, you could still play the GameCube. Is it Mario Party 4 or Mario Party 8 or something? I have played this game since I was 13 years old and I am now 30. I've been playing this game for dang near 17 years and I can't, because my sister and I just always call it Mario Party. Like, do you want to play Double Dash or Mario Party? And so I don't know what like the number is, but there's this game called Dungeon Duos and your partner is like hitting, I think it's B, as fast as you can. And it's lowering this like wall in front of the other partner. It's like a 2 versus 2 game. And that's what I'm seeing the wall of safety is when we start to feel like the safety is acting as the B button. So as we continue to press that safety button, the wall is just automatically going to fall down. And this is the key difference between power versus force. When we are forcing something, and it's so funny. Why are we using all these Mario references today? But it works. So there's also this same game, the same Mario Party called Slime Time. And this one, you have to press A as fast as you can. And I have a little tangent I'm going to go off in a second, but you have to press A as fast as you can. And essentially, once you press A so far, it breaks free, and that's how you win the game. So it's basically who can press A the fastest. But if you don't press A the fastest, it pulls you back. So it's the difference of force is having that slime stuck on us that we can run and run and run as fast as we can, but there's something always pulling us back to where we originally are. Where in the case of dungeon duos, when we drop that wall and we let it down, we can just move forward without resistance. And so really that is the question that I have had to ask myself, and that I encourage you to ask yourself today is, do you want to go toward your goal with resistance or without resistance? And I want you to focus on the key word of resistance, because we are not saying without trial, without hurdles, without jumps, because even in dungeon duos, once you get past those walls, you still have to jump on this little spinny thing without falling. You still have to put yourself into the right. There's those green things from Mario, the tunnels, or I don't even know what they're called. I'm realizing like how much and also how little I know about, like in real time, how little and how much I know about Mario. But you have to get into the right slot. And then at the end, you have to pump up like a hot air balloon type thing. And then whoever gets to the end first obviously wins. So even then, there's still like hurdles to go through. There's still challenges to go through, but it's not with resistance. It is with challenge, but without resistance. When we do not get all these parts of ourselves on the same team, meaning our conscious mind, our subconscious mind, our overall goals, beliefs, and desires, that's when we are running with resistance. That's when we are running with the slime time. And before we go any further, this is the tangent that I have to go on. So if anybody is like an expert in the whole Mario thing, please fill me in on this, because why can I win? Why can I win slime time? When I am playing this game, I can win slime time. I can press the A button fast enough that I am the first one to break free from the slime and I win. However, when we play domination, which is basically the same game, it's who can press A fast enough and get the most dominoes. I can't win that one. I've never won that one. We've been playing for 17 years and I've never won that one. I've actually only seen a human, because when our friends and family and whatever come over, we will play that game like during holidays and stuff. I've only seen one human win that game in the 17 years that we have been playing. So someone that knows Mario, please explain to me why someone can win slime time, but someone cannot win domination. Just please explain that to me. If someone on the YouTubes or the podcast knows the answer, I need the answer to that question. It's a question that's been burning in my psyche for 17 years. Anywho, back to our regularly scheduled programming. I just needed to put that out there because it's something that's been on my mind for 17 years, dang near 17 years. Honestly, the first couple of years, I thought I'd get to a point where I could press the A button fast enough that I'd win domination. Still hasn't happened. Anywho, and I'm also the kind of person, I'm not putting the little computers, like when we're doing two versus two, and two of them are computers and two of them are humans. I'm not putting the computers on easy so I can win. I want to beat them at their best, or I don't want to win. That is my attitude about it. Anywho, now we're officially back to our regularly scheduled programming. And so that is the power of us having all of these parts on ourselves again on the same team. It's that we can move forward with these things without resistance. Again, not without challenges, but without the resistance of having something from our past, a safety pin. Again, our subconscious mind also holds the safety protocols and safety protective mechanisms that are holding us, a piece of us back in the past. So do you want to move forward with that weight on you, or do you not? And I actually have been coming up with this in my own life, and I'm going to start doing a series about this, but I do want to touch on it here today because I think it's important. And what's been really interesting for me is whenever I have something on my mind that I feel like I need to teach about and share, it's always something that I am very similarly going through at the same time. So one of the goals and intentions that I've set for myself is I've been learning physical healing tools, mental healing tools, and emotional healing tools for the past since 2017. So like consciously. Oh, actually, but probably if we go back to like the physical healing tools since 2014. And I think I really got into it like 2013. So for over 10 years of my life, I've been studying all these different, it's interesting because for some reason I always think of it like 2017, but 2017 was really when I got into personal development. But I feel like when I started, it's just a random thing. I started Shailene Woodley. If you know the actress Shailene Woodley, she was in the movie Divergent. She was in Big Little Lies. I think she was in the movie Descendants with George Clooney. She was the teenage pregnancy show, My Secret Life of a something like that. And she I got obsessed with the movie Divergent, and she was the character in there. So when I get obsessed with things, I start looking up everything about them. And she's actually very holistic and what I would consider very hippie. I don't know if she considers herself a hippie, but I do. And it and I think that was like 2013 was when I kind of started pulling on the thread. And then it was really reading the It Starts With Food, which is the book of the Whole 30, and then reading the Bulletproof Diet by Dave Asprey that really got me more into like biohacking, learning how to heal the body, etc. And so, but for some reason, when I think about when did I start this, I always go back to 2017 for some reason. So I had to give you that backstory because Michaela's always has a backstory. And I this is like a thing. If I don't tell you the backstory, I feel like I'm not telling you the truth. It's like the darndest thing. So you don't just get the short story, you get the detour of how like it's not just from A to B. It's like, oh no, you're going to A to B, but not without the detour. And so yeah, started learning about that stuff and have been able to really heal. Like I had really chronic lower back pain and I had chronic anxiety and my eyesight. I fixed my vision to go back to 2020. I had to wear glasses in high school, especially to drive. I really didn't wear them at school, but I had to wear them to drive. Couldn't see like the board, so I would take notes because I also didn't want to be seen with glasses on at the time. And now my vision is back to normal. So those are like the big three things that I have done. And now I'm going, okay, can I use all of these tools and apply them to weight loss? That is really my big goal. As I talked about in the Miley Cyrus episode. So if you are on the Western Hippie podcast, I will link the Miley Cyrus episode. However, if you are on the Western Hippie podcast, if you also go back to the episode where I talk about Ozempic, I talk about the concept of our personal kryptonite. And weight has been my personal kryptonite. And I'll give you a short description here. I'm not going to go, if you want like the full extrapolation of what our personal kryptonite is, go back to the Miley Cyrus episode or go to the Ozempic episode on the Western Hippie podcast. I will link both of those below in the show notes. But the short version of those stories is our personal kryptonite is the one thing that we feel like if this would go away, all my problems would be solved. Other clues to find your personal kryptonite, it's where you've spent the most amount of money in the name of hating yourself, and also just the thing that you are the most insecure about. Like someone can tell me like, Michaela, you have the ugliest eyes, and I love my eyes. And I've said before, I have heterochromia, so both my eyes are a little bit of different color. And so someone could tell me they hate my eyes. I'm like, screw you. I think my eyes are really cool. And like, I love both color. And I don't know if I could choose one color over the other. So I get two. So whatever. But if someone made a comment about my weight or, we're just going to stick with weight here. Like I've gotten pretty good about like, no one could be meaner to me than me. So like whatever you say, it's definitely not as mean as anything I've said to myself, but that is definitely something I'm more insecure about. And I'm going to feel like, ow, that really hit me below the knees. And those are things you can start to use to identify what your own personal kryptonite is. So the other thing that I used to define what is our personal kryptonite is, when am I going to betray my values and just say like, I want this end result so bad? I don't know that I care how I get there. Like I kind of do, but it's definitely more of a gray area. And so when I think about my own personal kryptonite of this being weight, like, and especially as I see like, a couple of my friends are like losing a bunch of weight. They've been on this health journey. I'm just like, fuck it. Let me go to the extreme. Let me do like all the crash diets. And there's a part of me that it's like so tempting. But again, if I did that, I would be being slime time Michaela. There would be a part of me that would be running as fast as I could only to get slammed back because I haven't dealt with the part of me that is protecting myself. I haven't dealt with the part of my psyche that put the weight on in the first place. And this is something that, again, as I've done my emotional healing tools and I've healed these different things in myself, as I've helped clients heal specific things, The one thing that I've come back to time and time again is specifically with weight gain. And as we've talked about in this episode, is the only reason someone is overweight is because there's a part of their psyche that perceives it is safer to have excess weight on the body than it is to be thin. So, for example, if at some point somebody had to, and actually you see this more in animals, like an animal will be super overweight and then an animal will get randomly chased by something. And in that moment, the animal's body has decided it is safer for me to be thin than it is for me to have excess weight on my body. So, one of the reasons, there's multiple reasons, but a couple of the reasons someone's body would decide it's safer is, and this was true for me, if you look at childhood photos, you can very much see when I started experiencing like childhood sexual abuse. And so my body decided it was safer to have excess weight on the body because at that time, I'm not going to grow bigger than this person as far as like height goes, but my body can start to attempt to make me less attractive in order to protect myself from that person. So again, a part of my psyche perceives it is safer to have excess weight on the body than it is to be thin. So if I just go start crash dieting and if I just run full steam ahead and force this weight off of my body, again, this is back to the power versus force. Are we running? Or are we running with the slime like pulling us in the back, or are we actually like allowing that wall to come down so we can move forward without resistance? And it is so tempting for me with slime on and everything to just start running. However, I truly do believe that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I have done, I don't know how many crash diets in my life. I've lost 50 to 60 pounds and put it back on probably 4 or 5 times in my life right now. And I know if I just ran full speed ahead on that track, I would be doing the same thing again. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be insane and I don't want to do something I've done over and over again. I do want to loop back. So, a few other reasons that the body can perceive that it is safer to have excess weight on the body than to be thin could be we're beating ourselves up like verbally. And when we beat ourselves up verbally, if we don't have excess weight on the body, our organs will start to take a hit. And so basically, it's safer to be overweight than it is to go into organ failure. So the body will, again, this is a protective mechanism, will start to put excess weight on the body to protect ourselves. Um, and anything, it can also be like a kidney conflict, meaning you feel like your survival is at stake. So if someone has been in like money has been short for a long time, they don't know how they're going to put food on the table. This signals to the body, hey, it's winter time. So back in our primitive days, we would go into long stints of fasting and we wouldn't have food. So the goal with knowing winter is coming, we would put on weight. So basically, we had enough flub to fast for the winter. So those are the main three reasons that I've personally seen both in people and within myself as to why excess weight gets put on the body. But when we boil it down, it always comes back to some form of protection. So even when we go into something like gaining weight, we can start to see, hey, this is my body trying to protect itself. How do I start to show my body it is already safe and that it doesn't need to have this excess weight on? Again, it doesn't mean that we go forward without challenge. It doesn't mean that there's not a little, like in Dungeon Duos, that you guys, if you have not played this game, please go to YouTube and look up just Dungeon Duos so you can get the full visual effect of this. It doesn't mean that we won't have to jump on the little spinny thing. We won't have to go into the tunnels and find the right tunnel to get us the last spot. It doesn't mean we still don't have to pump up the balloon to go up in the sky, but it does mean that we don't have that slime and go watch Slime Time too, pulling us back into the past. And so the reason that, again, wanted to do this episode and wanted to get us to start looking at self-sabotage a different way is because we want all of these parts ourselves again on the same team so we don't have that resistance. But I also want not just me, but you too, to start to become your own best friend. Because I bet the way that you approach your best friend is not the way that you approach yourself, even if you guys are both in same situations. You most likely would have more compassion for your friend, and you're going to be more harder on yourself. And again, with the subconscious mind being so literal, when we use things like self sabotage, it can literally create visuals. And so we say self sabotage, again, that image that we pulled to the forefront of our mind is a very real thing that is happening even when you're not setting the intention to actually see the visual. All we did, and this is a technique from neurolinguistic programming, bringing these visuals to the front, because it's the visuals that are telling our subconscious whether we are safe or whether we're not. Again, they're happening all the time. We just took a pause to actually pull up that visual and take something that was subconscious and make it conscious. But it's happening no matter what. And so when we say these things and these images are getting sent to our subconscious, it is going to put us in a state of fight or flight. And when we are in fight or flight, energy literally leaves our brain and it goes to our limbs. So if we go into more fight, the limbs it's going to go to is in our hands, so we can punch more effective. However, when we go into more of a flight state, the energy is going to go to our legs so that we can run faster. And so ask yourself the question, do you think you are going to be more effective, more productive to reaching your goals when you have more energy in your brain or less energy in your brain? Again, these are all little key components, all these little minute details that matter to getting all of these parts of ourselves on the same side. And so even if you've made it to the end of this episode and you're like, honestly, Michaela, your argument, not that great. I think you're full of bull. I'm not into this at all. Totally good. I just want you to ask yourself, would you rather be self-sabotaging yourself or self-protecting yourself? Is thinking about self-sabotage more productive towards your goal or more counterproductive towards your goal? Is self-protection, thinking the same thing in a different outfit, is it more productive towards your goal, more counterproductive towards your goal? Does thinking about it as self-protection help you get there, or does it actually take you further away? Because if you're like me, again, one of the cool things about me, I think, is I'm one of the most skeptical people there are. And but the one thing that Tom Bilyeu actually taught me this, if you don't know Tom Bilyeu from Impact Theory, is there's only one belief that matters. And it's the belief that either gets you closer to your goal or further away from your goal. And when I'm mad at myself, when I am angry at myself, I am not as creative. I can't think as well. I do things more impulsively. And when I get angry at myself because I believe that I am self sabotaging at myself, it shuts me down. Therefore, when I think about me self sabotaging myself, it sends me further away from my goal because it starts to shut me down. However, when I start to think about it in the form of self protection, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so interesting. Because even when I started to learn these things about the body and why the body puts on excess weight in the first place, when I was going through the childhood sexual abuse, nobody knew. It was this secret between me, myself, and I and him. And so when I thought about it through the lens of, instead of hating my body, like, why do you hate me? Why do you want me to be ugly? Why do you want me to be the fat kid? Like, whatever thing I said. And when I learned this and I started to see, like, oh my gosh, my body tried to protect me. Like, when nobody else knew what was going on, when nobody else was there to protect me, like, my body was there to protect me. And so when I started to see it through the lens of self-protection, I got more curious. And again, when I'm more curious, I'm more creative. I can get more things done. And from that curiosity, I started to get more compassion for myself and my body of like, oh my gosh, that is so sweet. Like, I have struggled with feeling protected my whole life. And then I saw, like, oh my gosh, my body tried to protect me this whole time. And so, again, all of these things make me more productive towards my goals. So, that is all I have for you today. And again, my intention was just to get you to start looking at self-protection versus self-sabotage a little differently, and encourage you to maybe switch your language on it and switch your approach on it and start to ask these different questions, because different questions will get us different answers, and different answers will lead us to different results. And again, like me, if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, even if you're not convinced, maybe is it time for you to just try something different? Maybe is it time for you to just do something different? And maybe the one difference you can try today is looking at yourself from I'm self-sabotaging myself and changing it to, maybe there's a part of me that's trying to protect myself. How can I get curious and figure out how to protect myself in a different way? How to meet that need in a different way? And if you're like me, maybe, just maybe, that curiosity will open a door that's never been opened before. Thank you for tuning in to this first cross post episode of the Western Hippie Podcast and the Miss Michaela Mae Show. Again, I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. If you found value out of this episode, I would be ever so honored if you would subscribe on YouTube and also subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are listening to. And if you feel so called, the cherry on top that I like to call it, would you please leave a review and let me know what you found most valuable out of this episode. Until next time, Tank, Willie, and I will talk to you later. Thank you for tuning in to this episode.